I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you don't already have Apple TV, you're missing out. Once again, with the Gorge, they prove they're at the top of their game. Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy play two highly trained snipers, each stationed on opposite sides of a massive gorge. Their mission? To guard their respective sides. But everything changes when they discover the truth. Their job isn't to protect the gorge. It's to protect the world from whatever lurks inside it. Welcome to First Time Watching. Please like and subscribe as we dive straight into the explanation. Drossa wakes up in a tent deep in the forest. When a plane lands nearby, she calmly pokes her rifle out of the tent, waiting patiently. As soon as a man steps out of the plane, she pulls the trigger. Meanwhile, Levi wakes up from yet another nightmare. He heads to the beach, pretending he doesn't have crippling PTSD. A text from his employer arrives with the date and time. Soon after, he is escorted to Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton. There, he meets a woman in an entirely different pay grade. She asks if he can guess who she is. He assumes she's some high-level spook. She brings up his record as an elite sniper, 113 confirmed kills and 81 probable kills. She asks if those numbers are accurate. Levi shakes his head. No, there are more. She then asks why, with such an impressive record, he's currently unemployed. He replies that a corporate shrink deemed him unfit. Next, she wants to know if he has anyone in his life, family, a girlfriend. He answers no. She asks if he's on any medication. Levi smirks. Just a lot of booze before bed. Helps with the night terrors. Medication would mess with my accuracy. He looks defeated, like a man with no reason left to live. So, she offers him one. In Lithuania, Drossa visits her father at the cemetery. Kidding. He's alive. It's her mom who's dead. Drossa confesses her sins to him. She regrets pulling the trigger, knowing she made that man's children orphans. She doesn't sleep anymore. Her father offers her a place to stay, but she can't. She has to report to her commander in Moscow. After her last mission, she needs to lay low for at least a year, maybe longer. Wanting to change the subject, she asks if he's been to the doctor. He nods, but his only bad news: the cancer is spreading, and he doesn't have much time left. Drossa is overwhelmed with guilt, but her father has already made his decision. He's going out on his own terms. On February 14, the Valentine's Day, he will take his own life. He won't change his mind. He's ready. All he asks is that Drossa lights some candles and looks up at the night sky on the day of his passing. So they say their goodbyes. It's September. Levi wakes up on a plane, being flown to an undisclosed location. He gets that Mr. T on the A-team treatment. He isn't allowed to know where he's going. The location of his mission is handed to him mid-flight, but he's only permitted to open it once he's on the ground. Levi parachutes from the plane and hikes the rest of the way, following the directions in his mission log. When he arrives, he finds himself standing before a massive gorge in the earth. Waiting for him is his predecessor, JD. Levi has a lot of questions, but JD quickly bursts his bubble, saying he's been stationed here for an entire year and still has no idea where here actually is. JD is thrilled to see another human, having been alone for a year. His mission officially ends at midnight, and Levi is there to relieve him. Together, they head to Levi's new home for the next 365 days, the West Tower Observation Post. Levi notices another tower across the gorge and asks about it. JD simply explains that it's the East Tower, and contact with it is strictly forbidden. JD lays out the job. Levi isn't the main line of defense, but rather a highly skilled maintenance man. His responsibilities include patrolling the western perimeter daily. Automated guns are positioned along the gorge, and it's Levi's duty to keep them fully loaded at all times. He must also inspect the containment fence, cloakers, and suspended mines. Radio check-ins occur once every 30 days. Curious, Levi asks what a cloaker is. JD explains that cloakers are satellite receivers placed around the gorge, each with its own power source. They cloak the gorge from surveillance, making it invisible to spy satellites and even Google Earth. There is no outside contact. The only communication allowed is through the scheduled radio check-ins. In an emergency, there's a panic button on the radio. JD points out the air raid sirens mounted on the towers. If the cloakers are destroyed, or if the gorge is overrun, the sirens will activate a protocol called Stray Dog. Levi asks what that means. JD shrugs. He doesn't know either. He just knows that if the sirens go off, Levi should run like hell. The facility is old, built around the end of World War II, but more importantly, It's secret. Back then, the East and the West made a pact to keep the Gorge hidden from the world. Each year, a new representative from both sides is stationed to patrol the Gorge's rim. Levi raises an eyebrow. Are you saying that for the last 75 years, the leaders of the East and West have secretly been working together? JD shakes his head. No, I'm saying that in the last 75 years, there have been 9 Russian leaders and 13 American presidents, and not a single one of them has any knowledge that this place even exists. Levi can't shake the feeling that JD is holding something back. What exactly am I doing here? Levi asks. Am I supposed to keep people from entering the Gorge? JD nods. No, you're here to stop whatever's inside the Gorge from coming out. Without another word, JD pulls a grenade from his vest, arms it, and tosses it into the abyss. Levi stares, confused until the explosion echoes through the chasm, followed by inhuman screams and agonized wails rising from the depths. What the hell was that? JD explains. We call them the Hollow Men. Nobody knows what they are or why they're called that. Levi, still processing what he just heard, mutters. They're named after an old T.S. Eliot poem. The Hollow Men. JD didn't know that. But what he does know is that in the late 1940s, they sent 3 battalions, 2,400 men on horseback down into the Gorge to clear it out. But not a single man came back, so they decided on a different approach. So, what do you think this place is? Levi asks. I think the Gorge is the entrance to hell, and we're the ones standing guard at the gate. The next morning, they say their goodbyes as JD leaves his post. Levi's first day in isolation goes by slowly. He passes the time by writing poetry and drinking vodka. JD arrives at the pickup point, and an helicopter pulls him up. Before he is allowed to enter, they first have to confirm his ID. When he does, the man thanks him for his service, shoots him, and drops the body. They call the woman who scouted Levi to let her know that the rotation is complete. It's October, and Levi has gotten adjusted to the routine. He goes on his daily perimeter checks and does his monthly radio check. He tries to ask the person on the radio a question, but the person breaks contact before he can even finish. Behind the bookcase, Levi finds writings on the wall. Every person before him wrote a quote there. JD's quote was, "If you're lonely when you're alone, you're in bad company." And the quote of the first watcher back in 1947 was, "Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go." Levi hears sounds coming from the other tower. He spies on the east side. There is a woman cutting wood. It's Drassa. It's November. Drassa is celebrating her birthday and eating cake, and she gets bored. She decides to spy on Levi. She gets a block of paper, a marker, and her gun, writes something on the paper, walks outside, and fires the gun to get Levi's attention. Levi looks through his binoculars. Drassa asks him for his name. Levi writes back, "We are not allowed contact." Drassa writes, "My name is Drassa. Today is my birthday. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want." She got his attention now. He brings the vodka and writes, "My name is Levi. Shall we raise a glass for your birthday?" She gets out her infinitely better vodka, and they toast. She blasts the music towards Levi's tower and tells him to show her his moves. He writes back that he is a terrible dancer, so she asks, what can he do? He answers, he's a pretty good shot. She taunts him and asks how good and puts a bottle ready. He laughs it off. So she shoots his vodka flask from the other side of the Gorge, so he returns the favor by shooting her bottle. But that's where the party ends. Drassa spots movement on the walls inside the Gorge. Hollow men are climbing up. Levi fires the first shot, blowing up one of the defensive mines, and Drassa gets out her stationary minigun. Hollow men are climbing up on Dressa's side too. Both of them are blowing heads off of ugly, deformed cavern creepers the entire night with the support of the automatic sentry guns. It's morning. Drassa has a pretty nasty scratch, but didn't lose her sense of humor. She writes a sign saying best birthday ever. And now that their line of defense is compromised, it's time to get it back up before the next attack. But as Levi is doing his job, a drone flies up out of the Gorge. The stationary guns do not react to it, and it flies off. It's December, and Drassa is feeling lonely. But when she checks the other side, she sees that Levi decorated a Christmas tree and wishes her Merry Christmas, which makes her smile. They spend the month making snowmen to make each other laugh and keep an eye on each other while doing their rounds. Drassa even beats him in chess. I think she used the Queen's Gambit. December was a fun month for the two of them, but the fun's over. We jump to February. Levi is doing his rounds as usual, but Drassa is nowhere to be found. So that night, he decides to check on her and finds her crying on her balcony. He writes, "I missed you on patrol. What's wrong?" To which she answers that it was a hard day and that she wishes he could be with her. Now, if a man feels there is a 1% chance that he can flick that skittle, then no Gorge is big enough to keep him on his side. So of course, Levi is planning something stupid and insane plane. That night, he prepares for his trip, MacGyvers a bazooka into a rope launcher, and fires his grappling rocket to the other side. Drassa puts out the fire he creates on her side and makes sure the line is secure. She runs back up to check on him, and he is ready with a sign. How about dinner tonight? He cleans himself up, gets ready, picks some flowers, and makes the leap. Levi gets about halfway. He miscalculated his momentum, and now has to climb very far to reach the other side, but he finally arrives. Drassa runs towards him to meet him finally. She tells him she made rabbit pie for them and asks him about the flowers. She thanks him and then tells him he stinks and he has to take a shower because she can't have dinner with a stinky man. She offers to put fresh clothes out for him, but decides to put them a little further away so she can check out the crack on his back on her camera. First, they have a romantic dinner, and then of course they talk shop. Drassa asks what Levi's longest shot ever is. He tells her his furthest shot was 3,241 meters. She is impressed. That would make him one of the top 5 snipers in the world. Drassa asks him if he made the impossible shot in Yemen last year. He does not confirm or deny, but he does acknowledge that that was a world record shot. It was windy, and it was a kill shot from 3,800 meters. Levi tells her that he has been staring at the gorge for 6 months now, but the view is much better from this side. He asks her if she knows what he has been thinking about for all that time, to which she answers, "How you are going to get into my pants?" They laugh. He neither confirms nor denies, but what he has been wondering is what the truth is behind this place. But Drassa believes that too much truth will drive you mad. They talk about their traumatic childhoods that drove them to becoming a sniper. That night they dance. Levi has been holding out on her. He is actually a pretty good dancer, and for his next act, he performs the disappearing salami on her. After they cuddle on the balcony, she tells him about her father ending his own life. She asks Levi what he does when he's sad, and he tells her he writes poetry almost every single day. She asks him to write a poem for her. Of course, he already has, but he can't admit that. But she squeezes the title out of him. It's She Collapsed the Night. The following morning, Levi gets ready to go back to his side, but as he is sliding back, they spot hollow men scaling up the walls on Levi's side. A mine explodes and the shrapnel cuts the rope. Levi plummets down into the gorge. Drassa immediately grabs a parachute and jumps down into the gorge. She lands in a river and climbs out. Meanwhile, Levi is hanging upside down in a tree, and a freaking undead alien tree centipede wants to nibble on him. He shoots the beast and falls out of the tree. He then lands into a mouth that emerges from the ground and slowly tries to eat him. Drassa shows up and shoots the teeth out of that ugly floor sucker. Levi thanks his new girlfriend for saving his life. He asks her if she brought an auto-ascender, and she says, of course, but their troubles are far from over. Someone is coming. Tree people on horseback attack them with swords. The two use their heavy artillery to shoot the twigs out of them. After the battle, Drassa checks her bag and finds out she lost the auto-ascender in the river. It's 500 meters back up the mountain, so it looks like they're stuck. Levi checks out the ugly bastards' uniforms, and they are old military clothes. It looks like they are wearing the clothing from the battalion that disappeared in the 1940s. They walk through a forest of trees that look like they wanted to be humans, or the other way around. They find an old abandoned town, but they have no time to dilly-dally. They hear screams closing in on them. They run into a church to hide from the monsters. They search the church for any tree people, but instead, they find lifeless bodies sitting on the benches. The people had taken cyanide, choosing death over whatever awaited them. Levi and Drassa exchange a look. What could be worse than death itself, bad enough to make them take their own lives? A sound interrupts their thoughts. Something is skittering above them. From the ceiling, a giant spider drops onto Drassa's face, its legs flailing. Then, an entire swarm of 8-legged nightmare fuel descends upon them. Before they can react, the church doors burst open. The forest freaks charge in. Drassa quickly lobs a grenade, blasting a hole in the back of the church. As the creatures swarm, she and Levi fight their way out and escape through the opening. They sprint toward the gorge wall. By sheer luck or plot armor, they find a rusted door embedded in the rock. A bunker inside. The place is abandoned, overtaken by a strange fungal-like forest infection creeping along the walls. They discover an old laboratory. While Drassa searches for a backup generator, Levi notices something clutched in the hands of one of the skeletons, a film reel, gripped tightly even in death. Drassa gets the power running, and they watch the film. A female scientist from 1946 appears on the screen. She explains that this secret research base was originally designed to develop biochemical missiles, but an earthquake struck, breaching the facility and releasing the biotoxins into the city. Their mission shifted from research to containment. The virus didn't just kill, it changed people, fusing human DNA with the Gorge's environment. Infected individuals that have been exposed for extended sleep periods begin mutating within 5 days, the scientist explains. Their bodies adapt, merging with plants, animals, even insects. She warns that the only thing keeping this outbreak from reaching the outside world is the secrecy of the facility. Levi believes that because they have only been exposed for a few hours, they might still be fine. He notices an old desktop computer. Unlike the rest of the equipment, this one isn't from the 40s. When he boots it up, the Dark Lake logo appears. So now it all makes sense. This is why they haven't just destroyed the Gorge. Levi digs through the files and finds documentation on the drones they spotted earlier in the year. The drones are collecting DNA samples from the Hollow Men. Dark Lake is using them to study the creatures, aiming to create genetically enhanced super soldiers. Then he finds another file called Stray Dog. It's a failsafe, a bomb buried deep inside the Gorge. If the Gorge is ever exposed to the outside world, Stray Dog will detonate, erasing everything within a 4.2-kilometer blast radius. So since they do not know for sure if they will make it out alive, they have some sappy, lovey-dovey moment. It's time to go back out there. But Dressa notices her bag with the ammunition is gone. So Levi mentions the tree people are smart and can think tactical. They know they are surrounded, so they throw some smoke grenades into the mist like a bunch of duds. As they go outside in formation, they walk towards Dressa's bag that is standing there in the open. She picks it up, but stepped in a trap. A rope is latched around her ankle and she gets pulled into the mist. A guy on a horse is pulling her through the gorge. She is slamming into trees and rocks. She hits her head on a log and loses conscious. Levi is following the horse's tracks all the way to a destroyed missile silo. Dressa wakes up. She is hanging by her arms as a tree guy is checking her out. The woodwalker comes in for the attack, but Dressa kicks him backwards and manages to free herself. They fight, and Dressa shows great spirit. She even manages to shove a torch from a campfire into his pie hole. But she doesn't have to finish the job because Levi jumps in and shotguns his face into next Tuesday. He reads the tree guy's name tag, and he is wearing a uniform of some guy called Shaw. Levi remembers that name from the poems behind the book cabinet. Shaw was the first soldier in the West Tower. Levi leads the way towards the damaged missile. After the earthquake, it started leaking and went airborne. So, the contaminant is in the fog, directly next to the rocket. There is a large web of living organism, a fusion between the victims and the hardened biochemical toxins. To get out of the missile silo, they have to cross a bridge, walking through the living web. Dressa lingers too long while looking at the ugly blobs, and one of them grabs her. Levi comes to her rescue with his machete and cuts her free. Together, they run across the bridge. One of the vines grabs Levi's leg, so Dressa shoots a grenade to burn the living moldy string cheese alive. They take the stairs back to the surface and are back in town. There, they find a bunch of army jeeps in a shed. These old jeeps have a powerful winch. They will work just like the auto ascender, so they drive towards the gorge wall where they fell in. While driving, they can see the stray dog bomb in the distance. They find the zipline with which Levi fell and attach it to the jeep. Tree trouble is running towards them, so they have to fight them off while getting ready to scale the mountain. They drive up the gorge wall hanging by the cable, but it's not without company. The Hollow Men are using the cable to come up after them. On the jeep, there's an old sword and axe. The two of them use those to fight off these overgrown bastards. One of them jumps Levi, and he almost falls. He decides to stab a gasoline canister and light a flare to make it go boom. They are almost at the top, so they have to make sure to block off the Hollow Men's easy way up. So they stand on a ridge of the mountain and cut the rope to drop the jeep, and they climb the last bit. As they are licking their wounds, they talk about the possibility that they might be infected and decide that if they are, they will take their own lives. On to their next challenge. Levi has to go back to the west side because they both have to do their radio checks tomorrow. Dressa tells him the east side has a grappling gun that can get him across. He asks her if she knows why they chose him for this job, and she jokingly says, because of that impossible shot you took in Yemen, and he tells her, no, he did not take that shot. She laughs and tells him she knows, because she knows exactly who took that shot. They chose him because he was expendable. No family, no friends, nobody who misses him if he would disappear. But after meeting Dressa, it all changed for him. He has something to live for now. She tells him they could run. She knows a place in France where they could hide together, but Levi believes they have to take care of business first. They have to destroy the gorge. The next day, Dressa shoots the grappling gun, and they say their goodbyes. They agree that they will both wait out the 5 days to see if they're infected, and if they both survive, they meet up next week. They suck face, and Levi tells Drossa he loves her, but something is off. The woman who drafted Levi is on the other end of the line. She asks him if he went into the gorge. He lies and tells her no, but he did see her drones, so he guesses they are not military. She confirms that the private sector is indeed a leading party in scientific growth. She spills some beans and tells him that her job is to make the American armies unbeatable by any foreign armies in the world. He lies again and tells her that that is just swell. She then asks if he has noticed any movement at the East Tower. He tells her negative, so the woman jumps to quick assumptions, because if it wasn't him that activated their computer systems inside the gorge, then it has to be his eastern counterpart. She gives him the mission to neutralize his eastern counterpart, and he tells her he will. As they break connection, the woman looks at the recordings that were made inside the gorge and can clearly see Levi and Drossa inside their lab. She orders her commander to go and take out Levi in the morning. She will join them. The next morning, Levi and Drossa patrol the ridge together. Drossa writes on her notepad that she loves him too, but they get interrupted by a helicopter landing near Levi's base. Levi tells Drossa to run. The lady and her army can't find the both of them, so they release the minigun drones. They run as far away from the gorge as they can while keeping track of their distance. The drones have already caught up with them, so they both use their elite shooting skills to blow the dangerous toys out of the sky. They both lie down and get ready to make the perfect shot. Back in the base, the lady finds the poems behind the book cabinet. She finds Levi's poem. He wrote, "3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth." Now, instead of patrolling the ridge, the two of them did something else that morning. They armed the cloakers with explosives that will simultaneously detonate if one is set off, and they both at the exact same moment shoot one of the bombs that sets off a chain reaction that destroys all the cloakers at once. Then they both start running for their lives. That means the gorge is exposed, and the air sirens go off. Stray Dog is activated. The lady and her crew run back to the helicopter and take off immediately. Drossa makes it out of the blast radius, but the chopper gets caught in the blast and gets thrown into a mountain. Levi just doesn't manage to get out of the radius and gets pushed off a cliff by the immense power and falls into a lake. After the blast, Drossa hides in a nearby cave, counting down the 5 days, holding onto a letter she got from Levi stating that she can only open it if he does not make it. The 5 days are up, and Drossa is not infected. So she travels all the way to France, to their designated meeting place. But she is alone. Levi does not show. Inside the letter she got is the poem he wrote for her. She cries as she reads it, but has to go on. Next April, Drossa is working at a restaurant in France as a waitress when she sees Levi sitting there at one of the tables. He holds up a napkin with, "I'll have the rabbit pie" written on it. She tells him he's late. He apologizes and tells her he got injured at his old job. She offers him a job at the restaurant. The kitchen is hiring. Then she asks him if he has any special skills. He tells her he is a pretty good shot. His last one was 3,900 meters. She laughs because he just had to beat her record. And that's a wrap. It is undeniable that Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller are what keeps this movie engaging. I really love the movie and its ideas all the way up till they arrive at the town. I do not know why, but just maybe I hoped it would be a portal into hell. But instead, we got fed the private sector biotoxin story, and in my opinion, that felt underwhelming next to what it could have been.